I never thought my daughter Sarah's husband would humiliate me in front of dozens of customers. Standing in that gleaming Mercedes dealership showroom, Derek grabbed my arm and shouted loud enough for everyone to hear that I was too poor to even breathe their air. Security guards surrounded me like I was some criminal. But as they marched me toward the exit, a voice called out that changed everything. Sometimes life has a way of revealing who people really are when they think nobody important is watching. My name is Hugh, and at 68 years old, I've learned that appearances can be deceiving. For the past 3 years, I've been navigating life without my beloved wife, Margaret, who lost her battle with cancer on a cold February morning. The silence in our small ranch house in suburban Cleveland sometimes feels overwhelming, but I've found comfort in my routines and memories of our 42 years together. Our home sits on Maple Street, the same 3-bedroom house we bought when Sarah was just 2 years old. The mortgage was paid off 15 years ago, and while the neighborhood has changed around us, I've maintained our little piece of heaven exactly as Margaret liked it. The garden still blooms with her favorite roses every spring, and I drive the same 20-year-old Toyota Camry that she used to tease me about calling it my trusty steed. That car has seen 200,000 miles and still purrs like a kitten with regular maintenance. Sarah, our only child, married Derek Wellington 5 years ago, in what everyone called the wedding of the season. Derek swept into our lives like a whirlwind, all perfectly styled hair and expensive cologne, working as a senior sales executive at Premier Mercedes, the city's most exclusive luxury car dealership. From day one, he made sure everyone knew about his sales awards, his connections with Cleveland's elite, and his plans to own a dealership chain before he turned 40. Family dinners became interesting affairs after Derek joined our family. He'd arrive in his latest demo car, always something sleek and German, and spend the first 20 minutes detailing its features and price point. While Margaret was still with us, she'd smile politely and change the subject to Sarah's work as a pediatric nurse. But after we lost her, those dinners became exercises in subtle humiliation. "Hugh, you really should consider updating your wardrobe," Derek would say, eyeing my comfortable khakis and polo shirt. "First impressions matter in life. I could introduce you to my tailor." Or there was the time he offered to help me upgrade from my modest home. "Real estate is all about timing, Hugh. That old place must be worth something by now. You could get a nice condo downtown, something more, suitable for a man entering his golden years." Sarah would always jump to defend him. "Dad Derek just wants what's best for you. He grew up with so much success around him, he doesn't always understand that not everyone needs luxury to be happy." I noticed things Sarah seemed to miss or chose to ignore. The way Derek would snap his fingers at servers in restaurants, how he'd leave insulting tips if the service wasn't to his standards. The time he made a young hostess cry because she couldn't immediately seat us at his preferred table. Each incident added another layer to my understanding of who my son-in-law really was, beneath his polished exterior. Derek avoided visiting my home, like it carried some contagious disease. On the rare occasions when picking up Sarah was unavoidable, he'd wait in his car engine running, never stepping foot inside. Family gatherings were always at upscale restaurants or Sarah's house in the prestigious Shaker Heights area, a place Derek made sure everyone knew cost north of $800,000. "Your father seems content in his situation," I once overheard Derek telling Sarah. "But don't you think it's embarrassing when my colleagues ask about your family? I actually told them he was a retired executive, not a..." Whatever he did. What Derek didn't know was that I had been a software engineer who co-founded a small tech company in the early days of personal computing. My partner Charlie and I built database systems for medical facilities. Nothing flashy, just solid work that helped hospitals manage patient records. When we sold our shares to a larger firm in the late 90s, I took enough to pay off the house, secure a modest retirement, and ensure Margaret had excellent care during her illness. 3 weeks ago, everything changed with a single letter from a law firm in San Francisco. Charlie had stayed with the acquiring company, nurturing our little innovation into a cornerstone of their medical software empire. When they went public last year, and then got acquired by a tech giant, our original stake agreements kicked in. Charlie had negotiated brilliantly decades ago, ensuring we'd benefit from any future success. The number on the check still didn't feel real, $47 million. I sat at my kitchen table, the same one where Margaret and I had shared thousands of meals, staring at more money than I'd ever imagined. My first thought wasn't about cars, or houses, or exotic vacations. It was about how Margaret would have laughed, probably saying something like, "Well, Hugh, I guess you can finally afford to fix that squeaky garage door." But my second thought was more complex. Who in my life valued me for me, and who would suddenly find me fascinating once they learned about this windfall? Derek's face immediately came to mind. The man who found me embarrassing in my perceived poverty would undoubtedly become my biggest fan if he knew the truth. I made a decision that morning, sipping coffee from my favorite mug, the one Sarah made in her high school ceramics class. I would keep this fortune secret for now, using it as a lens to see people's true colors. The money would eventually go to good use trusts for future grandchildren donations to Margaret's favorite charities. And yes, maybe a few nice things for myself. But first, I wanted to understand who really stood in my corner. 2 days later, I received another surprise. Harrison Sterling, an old friend from my brief time in Vietnam before college, had reached out through military channels. He'd built an empire of luxury car dealerships across Ohio and wanted to personally deliver a special vehicle he insisted I'd earned 10 times over for a favor I'd done him decades ago. He was being cryptic, but Harrison always did enjoy his dramatic moments. The more I thought about it, the more a plan formed in my mind. Sarah's 35th birthday was approaching, and I'd always wanted to give her something spectacular. With my newfound wealth still secret, I decided to surprise her with a luxury car, something that would make her daily commute safer and more comfortable. It would be my first real purchase, with the money a gift of love rather than show. The universe, it seemed, had quite a sense of timing, because to find the perfect car for Sarah, I'd need to visit some dealerships. And despite every instinct telling me to avoid it, I knew Premier Mercedes had the best selection in the city. I had no idea that my simple plan to buy my daughter a birthday present would expose the rot at the heart of her marriage and change all our lives forever. Sarah's 35th birthday was 3 weeks away, and I couldn't shake the idea of surprising her with something truly special. She'd been driving the same Honda Accord for 8 years, a reliable car, but one that had seen better days. Every time I rode with her, I noticed the little things like the rattling air conditioner, the worn driver's seat, and the check engine light that seemed to have become a permanent fixture on her dashboard. I spent hours researching luxury cars online, something entirely new for me. The laptop Margaret had insisted we buy 5 years ago became my window into a world of German engineering and safety ratings. Mercedes-Benz kept coming up as the gold standard for safety, which mattered most to me. Sarah transported herself to and from 12-hour shifts at the children's hospital, often driving in terrible weather or late at night. If my newfound wealth could buy her anything, it should be peace of mind. My first stop was Luxury Motors on the East Side, a BMW and Mercedes dealership with gleaming windows and perfectly manicured landscaping. I parked my Camry between a Porsche and a Maserati, feeling slightly out of place but determined. The sales staff inside barely glanced in my direction, too busy attending to younger customers in designer clothes. After 20 minutes of being ignored, I left. The second dealership, European Elite Motors, proved slightly better. A salesman named Bradley showed me a few models, but his heart wasn't in it. He kept checking his phone and suggesting I might be more comfortable looking at their certified pre-owned inventory. When I insisted on seeing new vehicles, specifically the E-Class sedan, he claimed they had none in stock and wouldn't for months. By the third day of searching, frustration was setting in. Every dealership seemed to take one look at my appearance and decide I was wasting their time. It was an eye-opening experience being judged solely on my khakis and old car. The irony wasn't lost on me knowing I could buy their entire inventory with cash if I wanted to make a point. Finally, I faced the inevitable. Premier Mercedes, where Derek worked, had the largest inventory in Ohio. Their website showed 12 E-Class sedans in various colors and configurations. Despite my reluctance to mix family and business, Sarah deserved the best selection. I rationalized that Derek would probably be thrilled to handle such a large commission, even if the buyer was his disappointing father-in-law. Saturday morning arrived crisp and clear, one of those perfect October days that made Cleveland shine. I dressed in my usual weekend attire, khaki pants that Margaret had bought me, and a navy polo shirt. Looking in the mirror, I saw a comfortable retiree, nothing more, nothing less. Perfect for my purposes. The drive to Premier Mercedes took me through neighborhoods that progressively increased in affluence. By the time I reached the dealership, I was in the land of country clubs and gated communities. The building itself was a monument to luxury, all glass and steel, with a showroom that looked more like an art gallery than a car lot. I parked my faithful Camry in the visitor section, noting how it stood out among the BMWs and Audis, like a sparrow among peacocks. Through the massive windows, I could see Derek's workplace for the first time. Pristine white floors reflected the overhead lighting, and vehicles were displayed on individual platforms like sculptures. Sales staff in expensive suits moved between customers with practiced grace. Inside, the air smelled of leather and subtle cologne. Soft, classical music played from hidden speakers, and a reception desk that belonged in a five-star hotel anchored the space. I wasn't greeted or acknowledged, just another invisible older man in a sea of affluence. The cars were magnificent. I found myself drawn to a pearl white E-Class sedan displayed on a rotating platform. The information placard listed safety features that read like science fiction to someone who learned to drive in a '65 Chevrolet. Adaptive cruise control, automatic emergency braking, blind spot monitoring. This was exactly what I wanted for Sarah. 15 minutes passed as I studied the vehicle, and still no salesperson approached. I watched them flutter around younger customers offering cappuccinos and bottled water, while I remained invisible. It was almost amusing if it weren't so insulting. Finally, a young man who couldn't have been older than 25 approached with a genuine smile. "Good afternoon, sir. I'm Marcus. I noticed you've been admiring our E-Class. It's a beautiful vehicle, isn't it?" His respectful tone was refreshing. Marcus had warm brown eyes and an earnest manner that reminded me of Charlie's grandson. Unlike his colleagues, he didn't seem to be evaluating my net worth based on my appearance. "It certainly is," I replied. "I'm interested in purchasing one for my daughter's birthday. Safety is my primary concern." Marcus's face lit up. "Then you're looking at the perfect model. The E-Class has some of the most advanced safety features in its class. Would you like me to go over them in detail?" We spent the next 20 minutes in pleasant conversation. Marcus explained every feature without condescension, answered my questions thoroughly, and even shared stories about his own family. He mentioned his mother was a nurse like Sarah, working long shifts at Cleveland Clinic. When I asked about colors and availability, he pulled out a tablet to show me real-time inventory. "We have this exact model in pearl white, but also in silver black, and a beautiful navy blue that just arrived yesterday. The white one has the premium package with upgraded leather and the advanced driver assistance suite. Full disclosure, it's about $85,000 with all the options." I nodded, doing mental calculations that would have shocked him. With my secret fortune, I could buy one in every color without blinking. But this was about finding the perfect gift, not making a statement. "Could we look at the safety features in more detail?" I asked, "and perhaps discuss the warranty options?" Marcus was pulling up the information when a sharp voice cut through our conversation like a blade. "Marcus, what are you doing?" We both turned to see Derek striding across the showroom floor, his face twisted with an expression I'd never seen before. Pure, undisguised rage. His usually perfect hair seemed slightly disheveled, and his designer suit couldn't hide the tension in his shoulders. For a split second, our eyes met, and I watched recognition dawn on his face. The mask of the perfect son-in-law didn't just slip. It shattered completely. Derek's Italian leather shoes clicked against the pristine floor like a countdown to disaster. Each step brought him closer, and with proximity came volume. His voice started low but built quickly, cutting through the showroom's carefully cultivated atmosphere of luxury and discretion. "What the hell are you doing here?" He grabbed my elbow with enough force to make me wince. "Marcus, step away. I'll handle this situation." Marcus looked confused, but held his ground professionally. "Mr. Wellington, I was just showing this gentleman our E-Class selection. He's interested in purchasing one for his daughter." Derek's laugh was harsh and bitter. "Purchasing this man couldn't purchase a bicycle from a garage sale. Get back to real customers, Marcus, now." The young salesman hesitated, glancing between us with growing discomfort. Other customers began to notice the disturbance. A well-dressed couple near the SUV display turned to watch, and I could see employees throughout the showroom pausing in their conversations. "Derek," I said, quietly, trying to maintain some dignity. "I came here as a legitimate customer. There's no need for this." His grip tightened on my arm as he pulled me away from the E-Class. "Legitimate customer. These cars start at $70,000, Hugh. You can barely afford groceries on your Social Security. What were you thinking, wasting everyone's time with your delusions?" The words hit harder than any physical blow could have. Not because they hurt me, but because they revealed exactly who Derek Wellington really was. Every family dinner where he'd smiled and called me Dad, every holiday where he'd pretended respect had all been an act. "Mr. Wellington," Marcus tried again, "I really don't think this is appropriate. Your father-in-law expressed genuine interest in making a purchase." Derek whirled on the younger man with venom. "Did I ask for your opinion? Do you know how many times this old fool has embarrassed me? Do you have any idea what it's like having him as family?" Now the entire showroom was watching. Conversations had ceased entirely. The soft classical music seemed absurdly loud in the sudden silence. I counted at least 20 customers and a dozen employees witnessing my humiliation. Derek seemed energized by the audience. His voice rose to nearly a shout. "You want to know something, Hugh? I tell people you're dead." That's right. When clients or colleagues ask about Sarah's family, I tell them her father passed away. It's easier than explaining that my father-in-law is a broke old man, living in a house that should have been condemned 20 years ago. A woman gasped near the reception desk. Someone else whispered urgently to their companion. Through my peripheral vision, I noticed a teenage girl raising her phone, the universal gesture of recording in the modern age. I found my voice, though it came out steadier than I felt. "Derek, I came here to buy a car for Sarah's birthday. That's all. If you'll just let me speak with another salesperson, I'll complete my business and leave." He actually laughed at that, a sound devoid of any warmth. "Buy a car with what money that pathetic retirement account you've been nursing. Face it, Hugh. You're an embarrassment. To me, to Sarah, to everyone who has to associate with you." "That's enough," Marcus said firmly, surprising us both. "Mr. Wellington, you need to stop this right now." Derek's face flushed darker. "You want to keep your job, Marcus? Then get back to your desk and forget this happened. I'm calling security to remove this vagrant from our premises." The word vagrant seemed to echo through the showroom. I stood there in my clean khakis and polo shirt being called a vagrant by my own son-in-law. The irony would have been funny if it weren't happening in front of so many witnesses. Derek pulled out his phone with his free hand, still maintaining his grip on my arm. "Security to the main showroom immediately. We have a disruption that needs to be removed." A distinguished man in his 60s approached from the Maybach section. "Excuse me, but this hardly seems necessary. The gentleman appears to be causing no trouble." Derek didn't even look at him. "Mind your own business. This doesn't concern you." The man's wife touched his arm, and they retreated, but I could see the disgust on their faces. More phones were out now, multiple angles capturing my humiliation for posterity. I wondered if this would end up on social media, my degradation becoming entertainment for strangers. You know what the worst part is? Hugh. Derek continued seemingly oblivious to the growing negativity around us. "Sarah actually defends you. She makes excuses for your poverty, your stubborn refusal to improve yourself. Do you have any idea how that reflects on me, on my reputation?" 2 security guards entered the showroom, both looking uncomfortable with the situation. They were young men, probably early 20s, wearing Premier Mercedes uniforms that didn't quite fit right. "Mr. Wellington," one asked hesitantly, "you called for security." Derek finally released my arm, shoving me slightly toward them. "This man is trespassing. He's been harassing our staff and customers. I want him removed from the property immediately and banned from returning." The guards exchanged glances. One stepped forward apologetically. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to come with us." I straightened my shirt where Derek had grabbed it. "Of course. I'm sorry for any disturbance." As they flanked me, preparing to escort me out like a criminal, I maintained eye contact with as many witnesses as possible. Let them see who was really causing the disturbance. Let them judge for themselves what kind of man Derek Wellington was beneath his expensive suit. "And Hugh," Derek called after me, "don't even think about coming to Sarah's birthday dinner. We'll tell her you're sick or something. Save everyone the embarrassment of your presence." Marcus stood frozen, his tablet still in his hand, looking stricken. Several customers were openly shaking their heads. The teenage girl was still recording her face, a mixture of shock and disgust. The distinguished couple from the Maybach section appeared to be speaking with another salesperson, gesturing animatedly in our direction. Just as we reached the main entrance, something unexpected happened. The automatic doors slid open, and a gleaming black Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled up to the valet station outside. The car was perfection on wheels, its spirit of ecstasy hood ornament catching the afternoon sun. A man stepped out, and even from a distance I could see the quality of his charcoal suit, the way he carried himself with genuine authority, rather than Derek's manufactured arrogance. He handed the keys to the valet and strode toward the entrance with purpose. The security guards paused, seemingly mesmerized by the arrival of such obvious wealth. The man's eyes swept the showroom as he entered, taking in the scene. When his gaze landed on me flanked by security, his expression shifted from casual interest to sharp recognition. "Hugh," he said, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being heard. "Hugh Peterson, is that really you?" The guard stopped, completely unsure how to proceed. Derek, who had been watching my expulsion with satisfaction, suddenly looked uncertain. The man approaching us wasn't just wealthy. He radiated the kind of power that came from building an empire from nothing, from earning every dollar through grit and determination. I found myself face to face with Harrison Sterling, and his expression suggested he was not pleased with what he was seeing. Harrison Sterling looked exactly as I remembered him, only refined by success. We'd served together briefly at Fort Benning before I got my medical discharge, and he finished his tour. Even back then, he'd had that commanding presence, the natural leadership that made other soldiers follow him instinctively. Now, 45 years later, that presence had been polished by decades of business success. "Security, step away from this man immediately." Harrison ordered his tone, leaving no room for argument. The 2 young guards practically jumped back, recognizing authority when they heard it. "Harrison," I said, genuinely surprised, despite knowing he'd wanted to meet. I wasn't expecting to see you here." His eyes narrowed as he took in the scene, the multiple recording phones, the shocked customers, and Derek standing 20 feet away, with his face cycling through various shades of red. "I own this dealership, Hugh, along with 6 others across Ohio. The question is, why are security guards escorting you out of my business?" Derek stepped forward, trying to reclaim control of the situation. "Mr. Sterling, I can explain. This is a family matter that got out of hand. My father-in-law here was confused, possibly having some sort of episode. I was just trying to handle it discreetly." Harrison's gaze could have frozen lava. "Discreetly, I could hear you shouting from the parking lot, and you are—" "Derek Wellington, sir, Senior Sales Executive. I've been with Premier Mercedes for 5 years." Derek's usual swagger had evaporated entirely. "I was just trying to prevent any disruption to our other customers. By calling your father-in-law a vagrant by having him forcibly removed," Harrison's voice remained calm, but I recognized the danger in it. I'd seen him dress down a lieutenant once with the same controlled fury. "Hugh, would you mind telling me your version of events?" I kept it simple and factual. "I came in hoping to purchase a birthday gift for my daughter Sarah, Derek's wife. I was speaking with Marcus here about an E-Class sedan when Derek intervened. Marcus, who had been hovering uncertainly nearby, found his courage." "That's correct, Mr. Sterling. Mr. Peterson was asking detailed questions about safety features and warranty options. He seemed very interested in making a purchase." Harrison looked at Derek. "And you determined he couldn't afford it based on what criteria exactly? Did you run a credit check? Ask for financial statements?" Derek's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "Well, no, but I know his situation. He lives on Social Security in a small house. He drives a 20-year-old Toyota." "I see." Harrison pulled out his phone, scrolling through what looked like emails. "So you made a judgment based on appearances and assumptions. Tell me, Mr. Wellington, do you know what Hugh did for a living before retirement?" He worked with computers or something." Derek was sweating now, despite the showroom's perfect climate control. Harrison's smile held no warmth. "He co-founded MedTech Solutions in 1981. Perhaps you've heard of it. They pioneered electronic medical records before most hospitals even had computers. But more interesting than that, do you know why I was expecting Hugh today?" The entire showroom had become a theater with Harrison commanding center stage. Customers and employees alike watched in fascination as Derek shrunk with each word. "Mr. Peterson placed a special order 8 months ago." Harrison continued, his voice carrying to every corner of the space. "Not here, of course. He came to me directly privately. He wanted something special, and I was honored to help him acquire it." He held up his phone, showing what appeared to be a shipping confirmation. His Rolls-Royce Phantom arrived this morning from Goodwood, $720,000 fully customized to his specifications. The Spirit of Ecstasy alone is solid silver with a custom engraving. The silence that followed was absolute. I watched Derek's face drain of all color, his skin taking on an almost grayish pallor. Someone dropped their keys near the reception desk, and the sound was like gunfire in the quiet. That's impossible," Derek stammered. "There must be some mistake." Harrison walked over to the reception desk, every eye following him. "Melissa, please pull up the Peterson account on the main screen." The receptionist's fingers flew over her keyboard, and suddenly the showroom's massive display screen, usually showing promotional videos, displayed a detailed invoice. There was my name, the Rolls-Royce specifications, and the eye-watering total marked "paid in full." "Mr. Peterson paid cash," Harrison added conversationally. "Well, a wire transfer, but you understand. No financing needed." He was quite specific about the Andalusian white paint with the navy blue leather interior. Said it reminded him of his late wife's favorite color combination. I heard several gasps from the onlookers. The teenage girl who'd been recording looked like she'd just witnessed a magic trick. Marcus's expression shifted from concern to amazement. But it was Derek's face that provided the most satisfaction, even though I took no pleasure in his pain. He looked like a man watching his entire worldview crumble in real time. But he never said anything, Derek whispered. At family dinners, he just sits there in his old clothes, driving that ancient car. Maybe, Harrison suggested coldly. He was waiting to see how you'd treat him when you thought he had nothing. Character reveals itself in how we treat those we perceive as beneath us, Mr. Wellington. Harrison turned back to me, his expression softening. Hugh, I sincerely apologize for this treatment. Marcus, please escort Mr. Peterson to our VIP lounge while I handle this situation. Hugh, I'll join you shortly to complete the paperwork for your Rolls-Royce, and we can discuss that other matter you mentioned on the phone. Other matter? Derek's voice cracked. I couldn't resist. I'm also purchasing a Mercedes for Sarah. Today, if possible. I was hoping to spend around $100,000, but I might go higher for the right vehicle. Marcus practically glowed. I'll get the catalog immediately, Mr. Peterson. We have several models that would be perfect. As Marcus led me away from the growing disaster, I heard Harrison address Derek in that dangerously calm voice. Mr. Wellington, please join me in my office. Bring your sales records for the last 6 months. We need to have a very serious discussion about your future with this company. The last thing I saw before entering the VIP lounge was Derek standing alone in the middle of the showroom, surrounded by witnesses to his humiliation, his carefully constructed facade in ruins around his feet. The phones were still recording, capturing every second of his downfall. I felt no joy in it, only a deep sadness that Sarah had married someone capable of such cruelty. The money had indeed revealed true character, just not in the way Derek might have expected. The VIP lounge at Premier Mercedes was a world apart from the main showroom. Soft leather chairs that probably cost more than most people's cars, a fully stocked bar with crystal decanters, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the service bay, where technicians worked on vehicles worth more than houses. Marcus had brought me espresso in a delicate porcelain cup and a leather portfolio containing every Mercedes model available. Through the glass door, I could see the showroom drama continuing to unfold. Derek stood frozen as Harrison Sterling spoke with various employees, occasionally gesturing toward the office area. Customers who'd witnessed the scene lingered, pretending to browse, while obviously waiting to see what would happen next. Mr. Peterson, Marcus said quietly. I want to apologize for what happened out there. In 2 years working here, I've never seen anything like that. I waved off his concern. You have nothing to apologize for, Marcus. You showed real integrity standing up to him. That took courage. The young man flushed slightly. My mother raised me to treat everyone with respect. She always said you never know someone's story just by looking at them. Your mother sounds like a wise woman. I set down the portfolio. Before we look at cars for Sarah, can I ask you something? Has Derek treated other customers this way? Marcus hesitated, clearly wrestling with professional loyalty versus honesty. Finally, he sighed. There have been incidents, usually with older customers or people he doesn't think look wealthy enough. Management has talked to him before, but he's one of the top sellers, so nothing ever really happened. Top seller because he inherits the wealthy clients, or because he's actually good at his job? Mostly inheritance, Marcus admitted. Mr. Sterling assigns certain high-value clients to senior staff. Derek gets the benefit of those relationships even if he didn't build them. The door opened and Harrison entered, looking like a man who just finished unpleasant but necessary business. He settled into the chair across from me with a heavy sigh. Hugh, I cannot adequately express how sorry I am about this situation. In 40 years of running dealerships, I've never had an employee treat family the way Derek just treated you. What's done is done, Harrison. The question now is how to move forward. He nodded slowly. First, let me be clear. Derek Wellington no longer works for Premier Mercedes or any of my dealerships. I've terminated him effective immediately. I felt a twist in my stomach. Despite everything, Derek was still Sarah's husband. Harrison, I didn't come here to cost anyone their job. Maybe a suspension, some training. This wasn't his first incident, Harrison interrupted. I've just spent 20 minutes reviewing complaints with my HR director. 3 customers in the last year have specifically mentioned his condescending attitude. One elderly woman left in tears after he told her she was wasting his time looking at cars she couldn't afford. She could have bought our entire inventory, Hugh. She was old money from Shaker Heights, the kind that doesn't advertise. Marcus nodded knowingly. Mrs. Chen. She ended up buying a Bentley from the competition. Exactly. Derek cost me a valuable customer and damaged our reputation. Harrison leaned back in his chair. But what sealed his fate was the security footage. I reviewed it while you were in here. The way he grabbed you, the public humiliation calling you a vagrant. That's assault and defamation. You could sue us into oblivion. I'm not going to sue you, Harrison. This isn't about money. I know it's not, which is why I'm going to make this right. He turned to Marcus. Effective immediately, you're being promoted to senior sales consultant. The commission from Mr. Peterson's purchases will set you up nicely, and you'll be assigned to our high-value client list. Marcus looked stunned. Sir, thank you. I don't know what to say. Say you'll continue treating every customer with the respect you showed Hugh today. Harrison smiled for the first time since arriving. Now let's talk about that S-Class for your daughter. I assume you want all the safety features. We spent the next hour configuring the perfect car for Sarah. I upgraded from the E-Class to the S-Class, adding every safety option available. Night vision adaptive cruise control, emergency braking lane, keeping assistance. If technology could keep her safe, I wanted it. The total comes to $135,000, Marcus calculated, with the executive package and magic body control. Perfect. Can we have it delivered on her birthday? October 28th. Absolutely. Harrison made a note. What color? Pearl white with the saddle brown interior. She mentioned once that she loved that combination. As Marcus processed the paperwork, Harrison leaned forward conspiratorially. Now about that other matter you mentioned on the phone. Your family's fleet needs. This had been part of my test, seeing if Derek would recognize a massive opportunity. My nephew in Columbus is starting a medical transport company. He'll need 15 vehicles, initially preferably Mercedes vans. My cousin in Cincinnati has a construction company looking to upgrade their truck fleet, and I've been thinking about setting up a foundation that will need reliable vehicles for community outreach. Harrison's eyes gleamed. We're talking about 30 to 40 vehicles. To start, potentially more as the businesses grow. Hugh, that's a $2 to $3 million opportunity. Derek could have retired on those commissions alone. Ironic, isn't it? He was so busy judging my appearance that he couldn't see the forest for the trees. A knock on the door interrupted us. The receptionist Melissa peered in nervously. Mr. Sterling, Mr. Wellington is insisting on speaking with Mr. Peterson. He's quite agitated. Through the glass, I could see Derek pacing near the entrance, a cardboard box of his possessions in his arms. His perfect hair was disheveled, his tie askew. For the first time since I'd known him, he looked genuinely distressed. Your choice, Hugh, Harrison said. Security can escort him out, or you can hear what he has to say. I thought about Sarah, about how she'd need to hear the full story. Let him in. But you both stay. Derek entered like a different man from the one who'd grabbed my arm an hour ago. The arrogance had evaporated, replaced by something that might have been desperation. Hugh, please, you have to understand. I didn't mean any of that. I was just having a bad day. The pressure here is intense, and seeing you unexpectedly. He trailed off, perhaps realizing how pathetic his excuses sounded. You told people I was dead, Derek. He flinched. I can explain that. My clients are sophisticated people. I thought it would be easier than explaining what, that your father-in-law is a normal person living a modest life. You don't understand the pressure in luxury sales. Image is everything. How could I tell them my wife's father drives a 20-year-old Toyota? Marcus spoke up. My father drives a 30-year-old pickup truck. I tell clients about him proudly. He's a maintenance supervisor at the hospital, kept the same truck running all these years. People respect that. Derek's face contorted. This is insane. Hugh, you have millions of dollars, but you dress like you shop at discount stores. You live in that tiny house. What was I supposed to think? You were supposed to think I was your family, I said quietly. You were supposed to treat me with basic human dignity regardless of my bank account. Please, Derek's voice broke. Sarah and I just bought a house. We have a mortgage, car payments. I need this job. Harrison interrupted. You should have thought of that before assaulting a customer, before damaging our reputation, before costing us multiple sales with your prejudice. What am I going to tell Sarah? Derek seemed to shrink into himself. The truth, I suggested. For once in your life, tell her the truth. About how you treated me, about the lies you've told about who you really are, when you think no one important is watching. Derek left carrying his box of possessions, his Mercedes demo car keys confiscated, waiting for an Uber in the parking lot where he'd once strutted like a peacock. Several customers watched his departure with satisfaction. The teenage girl who'd been recording gave me a thumbs up as she left with her parents. Now, Harrison said, brightening, let's go see your Rolls-Royce. I think you're going to love what the craftsmen at Goodwood have created for you. As we walked toward the private bay, I felt the weight of what had just happened. In a single afternoon, Derek had destroyed his own life through nothing more than his own cruelty and prejudice. The money hadn't corrupted him or changed him. It had simply revealed who he'd always been underneath the pleasant mask he wore for family dinners. The question now was how Sarah would handle learning the truth about the man she'd married. The private bay at Premier Mercedes was a sanctuary of automotive excellence, climate-controlled, pristinely clean with specialized lighting that made every vehicle gleam like jewelry. But even in this temple to luxury, the Rolls-Royce Phantom commanded attention. The Andalusian white paint seemed to glow from within, and the navy blue leather visible through the windows was rich enough to make you want to reach out and touch it. You, I present your Phantom, Harrison said with genuine pride. Chassis number ending in 471, your lucky numbers if I remember correctly from that poker game in '68. I walked around the vehicle slowly taking in the details. The Spirit of Ecstasy hood ornament had indeed been customized with Margaret's initials delicately engraved at the base. The wheels were the optional 22-inch polished ones, and the coach line running along the side was a subtle navy that matched the interior. It's magnificent, I admitted, running my hand along the seamless paint. Margaret would have laughed at the extravagance, then made me take her for a drive along the lake. She was a special woman, Harrison said softly. He'd met Margaret once at a veterans reunion. This kind of success means nothing without someone to share it with. Marcus appeared with a leather folder. Mr. Peterson, all your paperwork is complete. The S-Class for your daughter will be delivered as requested. I've also prepared information on our commercial vehicles for your nephew's business. Thank you, Marcus. Your mother raised you well. As we handled the final details, my phone buzzed with increasing frequency. Sarah calling. I'd silenced it during the confrontation, but now I saw 7 missed calls and a string of text messages. Dad, where are you? Derek just called. He's hysterical about something at work. Please call me back. He says you were at his dealership. Dad, I'm worried. Please respond. Excuse me, I said to Harrison and Marcus. I need to call my daughter. I stepped into a quiet corner and dialed Sarah's number. She answered on the first ring. Dad. Thank God. What happened? Derek is here and I've never seen him like this. He says he lost his job and it's somehow connected to you. I kept my voice calm. Sarah, sweetheart, I think you need to hear the whole story. Is Derek there with you now? He's in the bedroom. Dad, he won't stop saying something about a Rolls-Royce and millions of dollars. Is he having some kind of breakdown? No, honey, he's not having a breakdown. Can you meet me somewhere, just you? We need to talk. Of course, where? I thought for a moment. The coffee shop on East Boulevard, the one where Mom used to get her Sunday crossword puzzles. 20 minutes. I'll be there. I turned back to Harrison and Marcus. Gentlemen, I need to handle a family matter. Harrison, can we arrange for me to pick up the Phantom tomorrow? I think showing up in it right now might complicate things. Of course. Take all the time you need. Your car will be detailed again and waiting whenever you're ready. Marcus handed me a business card. My direct line, Mr. Peterson, for the fleet vehicles or anything else you need. I left Premier Mercedes in my faithful Camry, driving through streets I'd known for 40 years. The coffee shop sat on a corner that had somehow resisted development, maintaining its small-town charm, despite Cleveland's growth around it. Sarah's Honda was already in the parking lot. She stood when I entered, and I was struck again by how much she looked like her mother. Same warm brown eyes, same way of tilting her head when worried. She hugged me tightly. "Dad, you're scaring me. What's going on?" We sat in a corner booth, the same one where Margaret used to puzzle over 9 across while I read the sports section. I ordered 2 coffees and took a deep breath. Sarah, there are some things about my life I haven't shared with you. Not out of deception, but because I wanted to understand who in my life valued me for myself versus what I might have. Her forehead creased in confusion. What do you mean? So I told her everything. About the company Charlie and I built, about the recent buyout, about the $47 million. I watched her face cycle through disbelief shock and finally understanding. 47 million, she repeated softly. Dad, why didn't you tell me? I wanted to, honey. I was planning to surprise you on your birthday, set up trusts for your future children, donate to the hospital where you work. But I also wanted to see how people treated me when they thought I had nothing. Her face went pale. Oh God, Derek! Tell me what he said when he got home. She pulled out her phone, showing me a string of text messages he'd sent her throughout the afternoon. The early ones were confident, even boastful about handling a situation at work. Then they became increasingly panicked after Harrison's arrival. He said you humiliated him, that you set him up to look foolish in front of his boss and co-workers. She looked at me searchingly. Dad, what really happened? I told her everything, leaving nothing out. The way he'd grabbed me, the public humiliation, calling me a vagrant, claiming I was dead to his colleagues. I watched my daughter's face transform as she learned who her husband really was. He said you were dead. Her voice was barely a whisper. He grabbed you. Sarah, I'm sorry. I never wanted you to find out this way. Tears rolled down her cheeks. No, Dad, I'm sorry. I knew he could be arrogant sometimes. The way he treated servers, the comments about your house. But I made excuses. I told myself he was just ambitious, that he'd mellow with time. We all want to see the best in people we love. She wiped her eyes. There's more, Dad. Things I haven't told you. He's been lying about money. He told me he was making huge commissions, but I found credit card statements hidden in his car. We're drowning in debt. The house, the cars, the country club membership, it's all built on credit cards and loans. Oh, honey. He wouldn't let me tell you. Said it would be embarrassing if you knew we were struggling while living in that big house. The irony, right? He was so concerned about appearances that he created a house of cards. My phone buzzed. Harrison texting that several customers who'd witnessed the incident had reached out praising how I'd handled the situation. One had placed an order specifically asking for Marcus to be their salesperson. Sarah saw the message and managed a watery smile. At least something good came from this. That young man defended you. He showed real character, got promoted for it too. Unlike my husband. She stared into her coffee cup. I've been thinking about divorce for months, Dad. This isn't the first time he's shown his true colors. Remember last Christmas when he made Mom's nurse cry? I remembered. The hospice nurse had parked in his spot in our driveway, and Derek had berated her until she moved her car, despite the poor woman having just worked a 12-hour shift caring for Margaret in her final days. The prenup he insisted on will actually protect you now, I pointed out. He wanted to make sure you couldn't claim his future dealership empire. She laughed bitterly. Instead, it means he can't touch your fortune or whatever you choose to give me. Karma really does have a sense of humor. We talked for another hour. About Margaret, about the future, about the birthday surprise that had exposed so much truth. Sarah shared stories I hadn't heard, moments when Derek's mask had slipped, and she'd glimpsed the man underneath. The time he'd screamed at a valet for taking too long. The way he'd insisted they skip my birthday dinner to attend a networking event. The cruel comments about my clothes, my house, my car that he'd made when he thought I couldn't hear. "What will you do now?" I asked. "File for divorce. Find a smaller place I can actually afford. Focus on my work at the hospital." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Maybe actually spend time with my dad instead of making excuses for why we can't visit." "I bought you a car," I said. "An S-Class. Every safety feature they make. It'll be delivered on your birthday." Fresh tears started. "Dad, you don't have to." "I want to. I want you safe when you're driving to those long shifts. And selfishly, I want to see you smile again." "What about you, a Rolls-Royce, really?" I grinned. "Your mother always said I should treat myself more, though I think she was talking about name-brand coffee, not British luxury cars." For the first time since she'd arrived, Sarah truly laughed. "She'd probably make you use it for grocery shopping just to be practical." "Undoubtedly." Sarah's phone rang. Derek's ringtone. She declined the call. "I should go home and face this. Will you be okay?" "I'll be fine, sweetheart. I faced worse than an angry son-in-law. You call if you need anything. If he gives you any trouble, you come straight to my house." "The house, he said, should be condemned." She shook her head. "I love that house, Dad. All my best memories are there." We hugged goodbye in the parking lot, and I watched her drive away to confront the end of her marriage. The autumn sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Somewhere across town, Derek was learning that actions have consequences, that the man he'd dismissed as worthless had been worth more than he could imagine. But the real value, I thought, as I drove home in my trusty Camry, wasn't in the money. It was in learning who showed genuine kindness when they thought there was nothing to gain from it. Marcus, with his respectful treatment of an old man in khakis. Harrison, who remembered a $50,000 loan from decades ago. And my daughter, who loved me the same, whether I had $47 or $47 million. Those were riches that no amount of money could buy. 2 weeks had passed since the confrontation at Premier Mercedes. The autumn air had turned crisp, and Cleveland was dressed in its finest fall colors. I stood in my driveway, washing my 20-year-old Camry, when a moving truck rumbled past towards Sarah and Derek's house. Or rather, what would soon be just Sarah's house. The divorce had proceeded with stunning speed. Derek, perhaps realizing he had no leverage and potentially faced assault charges, had agreed to Sarah's terms without contest. He'd moved back in with his parents in Akron, his tail between his legs, while Sarah kept the house. Without his income, and with the mountain of hidden debt revealed she'd have to sell it, but at least she'd have control over the timeline. My phone rang, showing Harrison Sterling's number. "Hugh, you'll want to see today's Cleveland Business Journal, page 3. I hadn't subscribed to the Business Journal, but a quick trip to the corner store solved that problem. There it was, page 3, former Mercedes sales executive facing multiple lawsuits for discriminatory practices. The article detailed how 3 customers had come forward after witnessing Derek's treatment of me filing complaints about their own experiences. Mrs. Chen, the elderly woman Derek had insulted, was quoted extensively about her humiliation. More interesting was the sidebar article, Young Sales Professional Marcus Williams Brakes Company Records. In 2 weeks, Marcus had sold more vehicles than Derek typically sold in a month, all through treating customers with genuine respect and dignity. Back home, I made coffee and sat at my kitchen table, the same one where I'd first read about my fortune. The doorbell rang, interrupting my solitude. Through the peephole, I saw a man in his 40s wearing a Catholic priest's collar. "Mr. Peterson, I'm Father Michael from St. Mary's. I hope I'm not intruding." I opened the door. "Not at all, Father. Would you like some coffee?" Over coffee, Father Michael explained his visit. "I heard about what happened at the Mercedes dealership. My nephew works there in the service department. He told me about your generosity and dignity in the face of such treatment." "Gossip travels fast," I said with a wry smile. "Indeed, but that's not why I'm here. I understand you recently came into significant wealth and might be considering charitable endeavors." We talked for an hour about the church's community programs, their food bank, the shelter they ran for homeless veterans. By the time Father Michael left, I'd committed to funding their operations for the next 5 years and establishing a job training program for veterans transitioning to civilian life. That afternoon, I drove to Premier Mercedes in the Camry one last time. The Rolls-Royce Phantom waited in the private bay, detailed to perfection. Harrison met me there along with Marcus. "Your chariot awaits," Harrison said. "Though I still think you should have let us make an event of it. My marketing department is dying to promote this sale." "I prefer quiet dignity to loud boasting," I replied, accepting the keys, "though I appreciate the offer." Marcus handed me an envelope. "Commission from your S-Class purchase. My first as a senior consultant. I wanted to thank you personally." "You earned that commission by being a decent human being, Marcus. Never lose that quality." The drive home in the Rolls-Royce was surreal. The car moved like a whisper, its presence causing double takes at every traffic light. But when I parked it in my modest garage next to the Camry, it somehow looked right at home. Margaret would have appreciated the humor in that. Sarah's birthday arrived on a perfect October Saturday. I'd invited her to lunch at our favorite local restaurant. Nothing fancy, just good food and memories. She arrived looking lighter than I'd seen her in years, as if shedding Derek had removed a physical weight from her shoulders. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," I said, sliding a small wrapped box across the table. "Dad, you already bought me a car. You don't need to give me anything else." "Open it." Inside was a simple key ring with the Mercedes emblem and a photo of Margaret in a small silver frame. Sarah's eyes misted. "The car's outside," I said. "But that's just transportation. This is to remind you that your mother and I are always with you no matter what road you're traveling." We walked outside to find the pearl-white S-Class parked at the curb, a massive red bow on the hood. Sarah circled it slowly, running her hands along the perfect paint sitting in the driver's seat to breathe in that new car smell. "It's too much," she said, but her smile said otherwise. "Nothing's too much for my daughter. Besides, I've got 47 million reasons to spoil you a little." We took a drive together, Sarah behind the wheel of her new car, while I followed in the Phantom. We drove past Premier Mercedes, where Derek used to work, past the coffee shop where we'd had our heart-to-heart, past the small church where Margaret's funeral had been held. Finally, we arrived at Lakeview Cemetery, where Margaret rested beneath a simple stone. Standing there together, Sarah and I each left a flower. White roses her favorite. "I heard Derek's working at a used car lot in Akron," Sarah said quietly. "His cousin owns it, selling 10-year-old sedans to people with credit problems." "That's honest work," I replied. "Maybe he'll learn something about humility." "Maybe." She didn't sound convinced. "His parents called me. They want to apologize for raising such an arrogant son. Apparently, he'd been lying to them too, claiming he owned part of the dealership." A groundskeeper walked by, nodding respectfully. He was an older man, probably my age, pushing a wheelbarrow full of fallen leaves. His clothes were work-worn, but clean. His manner dignified, despite the manual labor. 6 weeks ago, Derek would have looked right through him. Now, hopefully, he'd understand that dignity comes from character, not cash. "I've been thinking about what to do with the money," I said, "beyond the family trusts and charitable giving. What would you think about a scholarship program for kids who want to go into healthcare like you?" Sarah's face lit up. "Mom would love that. She always said nurses were the real heroes of hospitals. The Margaret Peterson Nursing Scholarship has a nice ring to it. We stood in comfortable silence watching the sun sparkle on Lake Erie in the distance. The city where we'd built our lives spread out before us, unchanged by my newfound wealth, but somehow full of new possibilities. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus with a photo of him shaking hands with an elderly customer, both of them smiling broadly. "Third sale this week. Thank you for believing in me." "Who's that?" Sarah asked. "The future of luxury car sales. Someone who understands that respect doesn't have a price tag." As we walked back to our cars, Sarah stopped suddenly. "Dad, do you regret what happened with Derek? How it all went down?" I considered the question carefully. "I regret that you married someone capable of such cruelty. I regret that it took money to reveal his true character. But I don't regret standing there with dignity while he destroyed himself with arrogance. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply letting people face the consequences of their own actions." Very philosophical, she teased, sounding more like her old self. "Your mother's influence. She always said the best way to handle difficult people was to let them be themselves. Eventually, they'll show everyone exactly who they are." Back in my driveway, the Rolls-Royce looked almost modest, parked next to my little house. The Camry sat in the garage, and I had no intention of selling it. Some things were worth keeping regardless of their monetary value. That evening, I sat on my porch, watching the neighborhood children play their laughter, carrying on the autumn breeze. Tomorrow, I'd meet with lawyers about establishing the nursing scholarship. Next week, I'd visit Marcus's mother at the hospital to thank her for raising such a fine son. And next month, I'd take delivery of 15 Mercedes vans for my nephew's medical transport business, ensuring safe, dignified transportation for patients across Ohio. The money hadn't changed who I was. It had simply given me the power to lift others up, and the clarity to see who deserved that lifting. Derek had seen my old car and modest clothes, and assumed I had no value. Marcus had seen an elderly man who deserved respect, regardless of his bank account. One lost everything through arrogance, the other gained opportunity through kindness. As Margaret used to say, "Character is like tea, you don't know how strong it is until it's in hot water." The water had certainly been hot that day at Premier Mercedes, and everyone's true character had steeped for all to see. In the end, justice hadn't required lawyers or lawsuits, just the simple act of letting people reveal themselves. Derek had grabbed my arm and called me worthless, only to discover that worth can't be measured in dollars. Meanwhile, those who'd shown kindness when they thought I had nothing found themselves rewarded beyond their dreams. Sometimes life writes its own poetry. The porch light attracted moths dancing in circles around the warm glow. I thought about all the people drawn to wealth, like those moths to light, never realizing that the real warmth came from human connection, not money. Derek had spent 5 years chasing status and luxury, only to lose everything that actually mattered. Sarah had chosen love over money when she married him, and now freed from his material obsessions, she could find genuine happiness. My phone rang one more time. Charlie, my old business partner, calling from California. "Hugh, you old dog, heard you bought a Rolls-Royce. What happened to the guy who wore the same shoes for 10 years? "Those shoes are still in my closet," I laughed. "Right next to my new ones. Turns out you can appreciate luxury without letting it define you." Philosophical in your old age. How's Sarah handling everything? "Like her mother's daughter, with grace and strength. Give her my best. And Hugh, don't let that money change you. The world needs more people who wash their own cars, millionaire or not." After we hung up, I sat in the gathering darkness, feeling Margaret's presence like a warm blanket. She would have found the whole situation amusing, especially Derek calling me worthless, while I had millions in the bank. But more than that, she would have been proud of how I'd handled it, maintaining dignity, while letting truth reveal itself. A car drove slowly past, music playing softly. Not the aggressive bass that Derek preferred in his Mercedes demos, but something classical and peaceful. The driver waved, and I waved back, two strangers sharing a moment of simple human acknowledgement. That's what Derek never understood. Real wealth isn't about the car you drive or the clothes you wear. It's about the connections you make, the respect you show, the kindness you spread. I had $47 million, but my greatest treasures were my daughter's love, my wife's memory, and the knowledge that I'd lived with integrity. The Rolls-Royce could take me anywhere in supreme comfort. But it was the 20-year-old Camry that had driven Margaret to her chemotherapy appointments. Both had value, but only one held memories worth more than any fortune. As the stars emerged in the Cleveland sky, I made my way inside. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and opportunities. The scholarship to establish the foundation, to organize the relationships, to nurture. But tonight, I was just Hugh Peterson, sitting in the same house I'd shared with my beloved wife, grateful for the chance to use unexpected wealth to reveal character, reward, kindness, and create a legacy that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with humanity. In the end, Derek had been right about one thing. I couldn't afford his cars not because I lacked money, but because I refused to pay the price of arrogance and cruelty that came with his sales approach. That was a cost too high for any budget, a debt that would ultimately bankrupt the soul. The real luxury in life isn't what you can buy, but how you treat people who can do nothing for you. Derek learned that lesson the hard way, in front of an audience and a dozen recording phones. Marcus learned it too, but from the opposite direction, discovering that simple respect could open doors he'd never imagined. And me, I learned that Margaret had been right all along. True wealth lies in the love you give, the dignity you maintain, and the grace you show when tested. Everything else from Rolls-Royces to real estate is just decoration on a life well lived. The $47 million was nice. But watching my daughter smile as she drove away in her birthday gift, knowing she was safe and free from a toxic marriage, that was priceless. And knowing that somewhere in Akron, a formerly arrogant man was learning humility selling used cars to people he once would have scorned. Well, that was justice, served not with revenge, but with the simple power of truth revealed. Sometimes the universe has a sense of humor. Sometimes it has a sense of justice. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you get to witness both at the same time. To everyone watching who's ever been judged by their appearance, dismissed for their circumstances, or made to feel less than because of what others assumed about your worth, remember, this dignity doesn't have a price tag. Respect doesn't require riches. And the true measure of a person isn't in their portfolio, but in how they treat the vulnerable among us. Have you ever experienced a moment when someone's true character was suddenly revealed? What did it teach you about judging by appearances? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please consider hitting that like button, subscribing to hear more tales of justice and redemption, and sharing this with someone who might need a reminder that their worth isn't measured in dollars, but in decency. Thank you for joining me on this journey. And remember, the next time someone tries to make you feel small, stand tall in your truth. Their opinion of your worth doesn't determine your value, your character does. May you all find the strength to maintain your dignity when tested, and the wisdom to see that real wealth comes not from what's in your wallet, but what's in your heart. Until next time, drive safely, treat others kindly, and never let anyone convince you that your worth is determined by the car you drive or the clothes you wear. You are valuable simply because you are human, and that's a treasure no amount of money can buy.